right, all right, all right. And I'm going to start the show off coughing. So I apologize for you all that are having to hear my voice. It's a little bit raspy. Some people think that's like a cool sign, but it's raspy because I went to Boston last week. I went to see some grandkids in Boston. And what Boston has that we don't have here in Denver is they got their own set of germs. And so my grandkids were hugging me, loving on me, and which I enjoyed tremendously. I just brought it home with me. And so, for those of you used to my normal voice, you're like, who is that talking? So, those of you who listen to this podcast, or it is a podcast, Fireside Chat, audio only, you're going to go, who's he? Who am we talking to? You absolutely are talking to Dr. B. And tonight, oh my gosh, I have been waiting for this. For Jonathan, I got to meet Jonathan and talk to Jonathan about a month and a half or 2 months ago. And the things that he was talking about and the ideas that I took from it, I don't know if I can say they were all new to me. Like I never heard of them before. And I think for you guys, you'll say, well, yeah, I heard of it. But he put it in some ways that made me start thinking about my own life, my own finances, and my own world that I live in. And over the last month, I haven't been able to catch him down because he started a new business. He's been out there, doing the road show, telling people about it, what's going on. He's going to tell us about that tonight as we get to talk. But I want this to be a conversation. So whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube or you're on Instagram or you're watching us live here on StreamYard, if there are questions that come up, we'd love to hear from you. Ask some of the questions as we get going. Because I think this might be one of the most important conversations that you've heard in a while. And because we get used to some of the folks that are the big time people like the Susie Ormans or the Dave Ramseys. And, we listen to some of the things that they say, well, that's not me. And so my life doesn't, I can't do that. Or, I don't think I can really get out of debt or anything like that. And so tonight we just want to be heart to heart about money. It was funny, since Jonathan, we met together, I went on a podcast called the Real Money Wealth Formula, and he was asking me some pretty in-depth questions about my life and my finances and what to do. And it was kind of refreshing to have somebody say, okay, it doesn't matter where you're at. It just matters where you want to end up. And this thing called money, people start acting crazy when it comes to money. And here's how I know that. I've been doing living trust and I did some financial planning in the 2000s, but I've been doing living trust for about 25 years. And when folks go to probate and the money is on the table of what somebody left, you find out some things about folks that you go, holy moly, you would do that to your mom just so you can get a few dollars? You would. My mom's neighbor, she was married for 57 years. It was his second marriage, but her first marriage, so 57 years. They didn't have any kids together, but he had 3 kids from a previous marriage. And so that was kind of the kids that she became the stepmom of and that kind of stuff in 57 years. Well, he passes away. They go to the funeral. On the way home from the funeral, those kids picked up a U-Haul truck and started taking the furniture out of mom's house. Like, not like, she had married for 57 years and it was all both of theirs. It was like, well, dad would have wanted us to have this. And whether you like it or not, we're taking it. And she just sat there and watched them kids take stuff. And when we get these material beliefs about money, and it was just crazy. And then just yesterday I was talking to a gentleman. He said, if you're going to offer like somebody compensation, I guess, for do like a referral. Let's say they're giving you a referral and they want to continue to give you referrals. And you say, cool, why don't you make you a partner? Every referral you give me is like $100 or something like that. He told me, it was shocking to me. He said, you're better off not offering him anything and getting them a gift because people go crazy about money. It's like they would rather just give you stuff and you say, no, I want to give you. No, don't deal with money. And so today, we get to talk about money. We get to talk about finances. And Jonathan, thank you for being on the show today and being willing to talk to us. And maybe for the first few minutes, just kind of introduce where you're from and that kind of stuff and how you got into this world of talking about money and what's it, after learning it, how has it changed your life a little bit? And then we'll just into like those 7 reasons and all those things that we can talk about tonight.
Well, Dr. B, thank you first and foremost. I was like a lot of folks, and I actually think the way that I was and the way that a lot of folks are is, in many cases, the reason why we feel about money. But we'll get to that. I was raised by two parents in the military, moved all over the world, moved all over the country. I had 12 addresses before I was eligible to get a learner's permit. And so I saw a lot of different ways to do life. And I saw a lot of different ways to eat food. And I learned a number of languages, and I saw different ways to be. And one of the things throughout all of that that was so unknown to me was money, because money wasn't something that mom and dad talked about. Now, mom and dad, hear me, but they met, getting master's degrees at Stanford University. They were doing okay. They had a plan. They just didn't share any of
Yeah,
the
sure.
details.
Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah.
share any details. So I didn't know how to avoid getting credit card debt the second you stepped onto a college campus. And I didn't know it's actually not a good idea to be a 21-year-old kid rolling into the motorcycle dealership to be like, I'd like to buy my first motorcycle on credit, please. This is not a good idea. This is going to go poorly. And I didn't know that, oh, well, let me just get a new credit card. And it's 0% interest on balance transfers. And so it's free money. I didn't know any of these things that wound up totally biting me in the rear. And so it wasn't until I met my wife. I met at the time we were just friends, and but I realized like there's something special about this lady. And when one of our mutual friends reached out to her and said, "Hey, her name's Stacy. Stacy, you want to go with me? I have 3 tickets to go to see Dave Ramsey in person in Colorado Springs. You want to go?" And she said, "Absolutely not. That sounds boring. I'm not interested." And so he got off the phone with her. He called me. He's like, "Jonathan, hey, do you want to go to see Dave Ramsey and learn about money?" And I was like, "Why? I would like to put a ring on this lady's finger. If I'm going to do that, I should probably get my money in order. And I know that I don't know it. And so, yes, I would love to go. Thank you so much." And he's like, "Great. Well, I got the ticket for you and the extra ticket if you want to bring anybody else." So I hang up with him and I call Stacy and I was like, "Hey, Stacy, guess what? We're going to go see Dave Ramsey." She's like, "Are you kidding me? I tried to get out of this, but I guess we're going." And we went. And one of the things that really jumped off the page was everything that he said smart people did with money and everything he said wealthy people did with money. I wasn't doing any of those things, but all of the things that he said, people who wind up poor and generationally poor, they do a bunch of these things. I was like, I'm doing most of those things on the not great column. So as we learned, here's how you get an emergency fund, and here's how you pay off debt, and here's how one of the things at that stage, we got engaged and we said we want to pay cash for our wedding. We didn't have parents who were helping and we wanted to pay cash for our wedding. So here's how you find a second part-time job that you can hustle, and for a short period, not for forever, but for a short period, you can stack up as much money as possible to pay for a very specific thing. And a lot of the lessons that we learned in there totally transformed how our life looks today. Totally transformed the time that we have spent between now and then. I mean, 17 years married, and I can honestly say, since we got the debt paid off, which was year 2 of our marriage, we have not had to go back into debt. We've been able to pay cash for vehicles. We've been able to negotiate the amount we pay to the daycare, to say, hey, I would like to pay in advance for a year for daycare because I know you'll give me a better deal. And we have not had a money fight as a married couple, because everything about how we do money is on the same page. Even the stuff that we aren't on the same page about doesn't need to result in a fight, not because we just have so many dollars. That's not it, but we're just on the same page ideologically with how we should be thinking about the money that we have, the money that we're going to need to spend, the money that we're going to need to save, the money that we're going to need to give. And so we don't have those little nitpicky fights of like, why did you buy that? Or where did that come from? Or how much did you spend on that? And we've never had them because we learned even before we were married. I think it was right before we even got engaged. We learned a lot of these tools, and it led us to just want to give back. So we've been teaching that class at our church. I think a dozen times we've taught a room full of 50 couples, folks wanting to do better with money. Here is what we learned. Now, obviously, as we all live and grow, I do believe a lot of what you were talking about. There are some big gurus out there in the money space, and a lot of the advice that they provide can be really helpful for a particular portion of the population. But I definitely don't feel like there's a one size fits all solution for everybody. And so we try when we're teaching to say, hey, here are the principles, here's what you need to know. But also, eventually, you're going to grow out of it with your success. You're going to grow past exactly the script, the recipe that's in front of you from Susie Orman or from Dave Ramsey. You're going to grow past it, and here's what you need to do to have the next steps ready for that next level of growth. So you can continue to learn. You can continue to evolve in your understanding of how money operates without allowing those huge feelings to show up like they sometimes do in probate when we've had somebody who's passed away, and without allowing those big feelings to keep us from having honest conversations that we need to be having, but that we don't have because, well, mom and dad never taught me about money, or the only thing mom and dad taught me about money was it's going to be a fight. And so I just never talk about it. We never bring it up. I have no idea how much my partner has debt. I have no idea how much they have in a retirement account. Like we don't want to talk about it because we're afraid it's going to result in a fight. And so we want everybody to have more of the tools that they need so that they can feel better equipped in their own fiscal understanding, but also more comfortable in their fiscal in the fiscal unknowns, so that they can ask better questions, so that they can feel better talking to other people about those things, and not feel like there's a fight that's going to be coming just because we started talking about money.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I mean, as I start thinking of my own life, and I think of, you talked about going to the college campus, and I can remember, I went as a young freshman. Our family didn't talk about money. I had no idea about any of the finances in our home. I don't even think I knew what credit was, right? And so at the tables, because our society is geared to get you into debt as fast as possible. And as I'm walking through and down this walkway, there were all these different card companies. And I stepped at the Sears one. I don't know because I'd heard of Sears. And they said, we want you to get $300 of credit, and that's what we're going to give you. Just sign this piece of paper. And, I'm so old that it wasn't like on a computer where it just automatically gave me, they told me it was going to take a couple days, and then they would send me a card. And so I got a card in my little mailbox, and my dorm room looked so good because it had $300 new of dorm room sheets, all that stuff that's in there. And then 30 days later, this bill came and said, you got to pay us $20. And I'm like, I don't have a job. I don't have, how are you expecting me to pay you, money? I'm on a scholarship. I thought it's like my student loan or whatever. When I graduate, I get to pay this. And Sears is like, oh no, you got to pay us every month. And I'm like, but okay. And so that was my introduction. And I think that's the same way for a lot of people into this thing called that. And, I think of like whenever I perform a wedding or something and I'm doing, premarital counseling, and I'm asking if you guys talked about money yet. And we just talk about love. I know, well, the love is going to be pretty short lived if you ain't talking about this thing called money. Because, and then I'm like, well, is mom paying? Who's paying for this wedding? And they're like, we are on our credit cards. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to spend $10,000, $20,000 in debt for a day in your life. And I'm not saying that, $10,000 or $20,000 is a bad thing for a wedding. But if it starts you guys off in debt, it might be something else to talk about. So maybe talking to us a little bit about some of those, you talked about foundation things, and maybe some of the big people, you might catch the end of a show and go, I got to do that, or I got to do this, or you read a book and, I see multiple streams of income. So I have all these incomes. What are some of these foundational things that we should all probably know before we even start the outside stuff that's going to cost money?
So, the first thing I think that's really important is that everybody needs to understand money is only complicated for like the 5 minutes that you don't know much about it. But once you start spending time learning about money, you recognize, oh, there. this is actually, this can be simple. This doesn't have to be overwhelming. This doesn't have to be emotionally triggering. This doesn't have to result in a fight. But what that requires you to do is step outside of your comfort zone just a little bit to learn just a little bit. And once you learn a little bit, you recognize, okay, well, I learned that, and it's not so challenging. I'm feeling more comfortable with that. Now I can learn a little bit more. And that process of learning, being open to learning and being open to saying, hey, I don't know it today, but it isn't complicated. Even concepts like compound interest and concepts like retirement investing and concepts like good debt versus bad debt, like all of these concepts that can sound, why I don't know what the term mutual fund, I don't know what that means, and when I stock market, I don't know what that means, and I'm confused, and oh, I'm just tossing up my hands and walking away. We are grown-ups, which means we put on our pants and we go to work. We do things that are not easy, and we do things that we don't necessarily love to do because they need to be done. And learning about money, it starts as a chore, but I promise you, when you feel like your money is doing what you want it to be doing, it no longer feels like a chore. It feels like a vacation every day when you are saying to yourself, hey, I woke up this morning and I realized absolutely no one has called me in a month or 2 months or 6 months and asked me to give them money that I owe them. What a lovely sensation. And so part of what needs to happen is we got to get outside of our heads on this and just look at money any other topic that we are trying to be interested in. You really like motorcycles, so you like to read a motorcycle magazine, and you like to go to the motorcycle shows, and you like to talk to buddies online about motorcycle. Hey, this is something else that you want to be learning about. You do want to make sure that you're learning from people who do, in fact, know what they're talking about, because there are a whole lot of opinions out there, and many of them. One of Dave Ramsey's phrases that I love is, "I do not take money advice from broke people." I don't want my personal trainer at the gym to be in worse shape than me. It's gonna be real tough for me to believe you can help me if this is your A game and you're gonna help me up my game. I don't think you can. So you want to make sure you're trusting credible sources for this information, and usually you want people who can be verified as opposed to, no, my cousin's uncle's roommate's best friend. He's doing well with money. Let me tell you what he says. Mm-mm. I want to see this person. I want to know that this person knows what they're talking about. But one of the biggest pieces is understanding the role of having an emergency fund in place. That's one of the pieces that a lot of people forget, even people who are on fire to get out of debt. Like, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to eat. I'm going to focus everything on getting out of debt. Well, no, 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 no. First thing you've got to do if you have debt and you're trying to get rid of it is you have to have some sort of an emergency fund as a buffer between you and life. There's no one who's listening to this or watching this who is unaware. Life is absolutely going to be throwing curveballs at you. And it never chooses to throw. There's never a day when you wake up and it's a beautiful day and you've got nothing on the agenda and life throws you a curveball and you're like, man, what a perfect day to get a curveball. I'm so glad it showed up today. The curveballs only ever show up on the day that you're saying, I have to get to work extra early today. That's the day that the car breaks down. I absolutely have a huge interview. That's the day that you realize that the suit that you forgot to get cleaned actually now has hole in it. You can't wear it. You need a suit in about 90 minutes. You need a suit. Like the emergencies only show up when you at the worst possible time. So you need to have an emergency fund in place so that when, not if, when they show up, you have some buffer to keep you focused on getting out of debt, to keep you able to get out of debt. Like what you just outlined with that, the couple wanting to get married, they're starting their marriage by taking on a bunch of debt, and so they're literally in the honeymoon phase. You got that 30 days, and they're going to get back from the vacation honeymoon, and then the bill's going to show up, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like a honeymoon anymore.
Yeah.
If you
Jonathan, I want to interrupt you just for a second as you're going through it. What's an emergency? Because I think there are so many different thought processes on. I,
yeah.
I got my emergency fund. Uh, I'll just let you take it from there, right?
Dr. B, I appreciate you. So, emergency. we have in this culture, we've really co-opted that term basically to mean anything that's inconvenient is what we think of when we hear the term emergency. We really need to move the term emergency back to what it was intended for, which is there is a dire situation that if not addressed immediately will create has the potential to create catastrophic loss of life or limb fiscally, and thus, if it doesn't meet the criteria of being an emergency, we don't call, oh my gosh, I forgot to pack a lunch. This is an emergency when noon rolls around. Like, nah, man, you just forgot to pack a lunch. I like to use the term emergency is for big things that can rock your life and your wallet and that are unexpected. So you getting into a car accident today, whether or not you are injured, that's an emergency because you don't have a car. You can't get to work. Or maybe you were injured and now you've got a leg up at the hospital and you can't get to work and some bills coming your way. Emergencies are things you couldn't have foreseen this coming. I came home and all of a sudden why is there water all over the floor in my kitchen? Oh no, my dishwasher broke while I was out. Uh, there's a flood in my kitchen. This is an emergency. If I don't address this immediately, what was a problem becomes a catastrophic problem. Emergency is not you found a good deal on an Airbnb in Vegas and really want to go. Emergency is not they're doing a buy one get one down there at the electronics store on 55-inch plasma TV like that. These are not emergencies. Christmas, not an emergency. Just because you didn't save any money for it all year, when you roll around and December reminds you that Christmas is you want to buy some holiday presents. It's time. That's not an emergency because you could have absolutely planned for that.
Thank you. Thank you for walking us down the emergency. So we get the emergency fund. Is there certain ways you should build it, or certain like I've heard people say, well, like the envelope system. I'm going to put my emergency money in my safe, or I'm going to put it in a bank account I can't touch. We have this issue with our debit card, right? These cards that we can't see the cash going in and out of our hands, and because we can't see it going in our hands, all of a sudden we swipe it. Well, I'll use my emergency fund as my like I have a savings, but it's my overdraft. So my
Yeah.
emergency fund is getting overdrafted and taken away all the time.
Yep.
How should we do this with our emergency fund?
A great question. So a lot of folks feel more, especially if they're not called overly banked, meaning less experience having their money sitting in a bank. A lot of folks will put it into an envelope, put it in a glass jar, put it in the underwear drawer. I'm so nervous for those folks because what looks like an emergency when you have $1,000, which is a really good start for an emergency fund. When you have that money just sitting there, it looks like it's doing nothing. It looks like that money is doing nothing for you. The reality is the money is absolutely working for you because just having it means that when something breaks on your car that was unexpected, and I'm going to keep coming back to emergency is unexpected. Oh, your car needs tires. That's not an emergency, man. You drive a car. They need tires. Oh, man, your car needs an oil change. That's not an emergency. You have to change the oil in the car. You ran out of gas. Not an emergency. All of these are planned. You can absolutely plan them. You don't know the specific day for many of these things, but you absolutely know if you drive a car, it needs maintenance, it needs tires, it needs fuel. But if an emergency arises, knowing that you have the money to handle a crisis that shows up completely changes your resting stress level, completely changes how you sleep at night, completely changes how you wake up in the morning and show up at work. It changes how you parent and changes how you partner because knowing that that buffer is there absolutely changes you and better prepares you to navigate what's coming. So it serves a purpose. But back to your question, I like to put mine in a money market account that's like a checking account, but it earns a little bit better interest. I like to put it in a timed savings account. A timed
Mhm.
savings account is an account at the bank where you put the money in, and there's a penalty for taking it out early. You lose some of the interest that you were accruing if you take it out early. So it's going to hurt because you put that money in, and that $1,000 you can see in the account. Hey, if you wait for another 4 months, your $1,000 will have an extra $50 in there. And you'll be like, all I got to do is nothing, and I get an extra $50 for free. That sounds great. I like to put it in a time savings. That way I really have to think, is this thing that I'm calling an emergency worth losing my free money for? If it is, then I will go to that bank that I do not have a debit card for, and I will ask to take my money out. And then I'll use that money to fix whatever the problem is. But sometimes, as I'm calling it an emergency because I'm having the emotions around it, I'm actually able to be like, that money in there, get my free money in 4 months. How can I navigate this problem without using my emergency fund? But again, to your question, I want my emergency fund not under my mattress. I do not want it in my underwear drawer. I do not want it in my regular checking account, just sitting there as a buffer. Because in all of those scenarios, I will absolutely spend it intentionally or impulsively, and inevitably Murphy's Law says the day after
Mhm.
you buy that discount leather couch with your emergency fund money, that's the day that your car's going to break down and you don't have any funds to deal with it.
Yeah. We you started talking about emotions a little bit, and I've always learned that when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And a
Correct.
lot of the things that we spend money on are these emotional things. And so, like you said, I got this deal in Vegas, or that person called me on the phone, and my heartstrings, or I have this opportunity that I'll never ever have again for the rest of my life. Nobody will ever give me a hotel room in Vegas ever again. And so the emotions get high. I have to jump into my emergency fund. I'll be able to put it back next week after I go to Vegas. Not only do I spend my full emergency fund in Vegas, but now I'm using credit to pay for the rest of the trip because I'm having so much fun. And we justify. How do we take the emotion out of this one thing that we just started out with, the emergency fund? I know we've only jumped into one thing so far, but it's just so important that we do this stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's a really great question, and one of the ways that I like to look at not just emergency fund purchases, but any purchase
Mhm.
is, if I'm really excited about it, you're correct. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that processes logically and rationally, when you're super excited or super stressed, that part of the brain gets shut down. It literally is knocked offline, and you're just living in the emotions of yourself. If you have the ability to take a breath and take a step back from whatever it is, and to the example that you're saying, we talked about Vegas, right? So we got this trip to Vegas, and I'm really excited about the prospect of going to Vegas. So maybe I got to pull some money out of my emergency fund so I can go to Vegas. Take a breath and take a step back. And the question that you are asking isn't, can I afford to go to Vegas? Because you are looking at it by asking that question, being like, oh, yeah, I have this money in my emergency fund. Yes, I can afford to go to Vegas. We change the question to a better question, and it should always be our question for almost any purchase ever, certainly in an emergency. What is the best price that I can get to solve whatever this problem is? If I'm in front of a TV and I really want a TV and it looks like they're on sale, I should still say, what is the best price I can get this TV for? If I really want to go to Vegas, we shouldn't say, can I afford to go to Vegas right now? We say, what is the best price that I can get to go to Vegas if I went right now? There's an emergency and it needs to get my car fixed. What is the best price that I can get to get this car fixed? Now, obviously, there's a lot to be said for the cheapest is not always the best, but we want to take a look at value, right? But we also, if we are willing to ask that question, we're almost always able, well, let me hop online real fast and see if there's a better deal to get to Vegas. Let me make a couple of phone calls. Take me 10 minutes. I'll make a couple of phone calls. I'll text the pictures of my busted car to these auto repair places and say, how much to fix this? Because if I am able to do that step, it's a huge disruptor to the fact that you're living in your emotions as it pertains to money. If you're able to do
Yeah.
that step, taking the breath, you're going to get better input. And as soon as you start getting different quotes, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, what I thought was a good price to get to Vegas, actually, I already found a couple that are better. Okay, so if I already found those and it only took me 10 minutes, what if I spent an hour looking? Now,
Yes.
oh, okay, we're getting even better deals. So part of it is removing that emotion by not allowing yourself to make any impulse decisions for virtually any purchase, because if you can take that step back, you're almost always able to find a better price to move it forward. And in some cases, you're able to recognize in looking for a better price, actually realized I don't even need this. This is a silly thing. I don't need it.
Yeah. So, and that tends to seem like that happens all the time as we finally get to the point where we go, wait a minute, now that I thought about it and I'm not in the moment, that's like why the timeshare presentations and everything are so emotional. And then they tell you this will never, ever be available again. This price is the rock bottom price. You're in a car dealership, right? This offer will last you for 10 minutes. You'll never find this car anywhere again. And they get us. And I act like I've never been enticed by those, because I have. And just as I was telling you about that podcast I went on, the Real Wealth Formula, he said, Brian, he said, I can tell you love to learn. And folks continue to call you to learn the next thing, right? I got to learn AI. Well, now I got to learn AI even more. Now I got to learn AI chat GPT. He says, you're already teaching classes on this stuff. He said, if you already know, he said, here's the deal. You are not allowed to take another class that requires you using a credit card or any debt to take it. If you want to take the class and you want it that bad, go get the cash for it and then take it. But that class could make me money real quick. No, that is for the rest of your life. You're 60 years old. For the rest of your life, you are not allowed to you already have a doctorate. You don't need to go back to school. You are not allowed to take another class for the rest of your life that requires you using a credit card to do it. And just the same thing you're talking about there, that we do that. Emergency fund. So that's the first step. You said emergency fund. So the second step that you would say that we need to have if we're trying to make sure that our money is in place, what would that be?
Well, I mean, it's really done kind of in conjunction with the first step, which is
Okay.
you need to have an emergency fund in place before you start working on getting out of debt. But in order to get an emergency fund in place, you need to have a budget that's ready and functional. And that budget, use Dave's phrase, the budget needs to be done on paper, on purpose, before the month begins. It is currently October 30th, right? Your budget for November should be done on paper, ready to go, to talk about here's the money that I'm bringing in next month. Here's some expenses that I know that I'm going to have. Here's some things that if I could, I'd love to get. And here's the debts that I have that are going to need some payments, right? I should have all that information. Ideally, today, definitely don't want to put it off until Halloween night because you're doing trick or treating while trying to do your budget. That's not going to pan out. But if you have that information, the budget that you made the budget, a lot of people view the budget and even the term as really restrictive instead of recognizing the budget is your workout plan. You want to get in better shape? You talk to someone at the gym who can help design a personalized workout plan for you. Now, they didn't come up to you and be like, hey, guy, total stranger, you're going to go into my gym and here's what you're going to do. No, you designed it with them by inviting them in to give you their professional input. And then when they hand you a workout plan, you don't look at them and be like, oh, this is really restrictive. I can't believe you're going to want me to eat better and drink water and sleep and do these lifts. Ugh. No, this was your idea. You're the one who said you wanted to be in better physical shape. So you asked for the workout plan. You asked for the nutrition plan, or you designed it for yourself and figured out, I think this will work for me. The budget's the same thing. It's the plan. And the reason that it's important is because a lot of us look at money and okay, well, it's the end of October. Let me design my budget for the month of October based on what I spent. That's not helpful under no circumstance. I mean, unless you work in government, like that's not helpful. We need you to absolutely know what you're going to do with your money
Yeah.
next month, especially if you're telling me and you're telling yourself, I want to be out of debt. The budget is how you find where there's things that you can trim and not even necessarily remove. Some people don't need to go, I'm never eating at a restaurant for the next 2 years. Like not everybody needs to do that. But the budget is where you determine, look, I'm only spending X number of dollars at restaurants each month. And so you're working on getting an emergency fund fully funded as quickly as possible. Sell a bunch of stuff because you've got too much stuff. I guarantee you do. Take up an extra shift. Whatever you're going to do, get the emergency fund as fast as possible while building your budget for the next month. Once those two things are in place, you want to start working on your debt snowball. The debt snowball method briefly explained is you just list out all the debts that you have, anything that requires a payment. It does not matter the interest rate. And the reason this is important is because a lot of people think, okay, well, no, I want to pay off my high interest rate stuff first. No, you want to make progress in getting all of this paid off as quickly as possible. That's the goal. If you were the type of person who said, I can think my way through this process of paying off debt better than most people. If that were true, then you wouldn't have this debt to begin with. So what we need you to do is get some real solid wins from paying off small debts first, smallest balance to largest balance, and then you pay as much as humanly possible at the smallest balance debt. And once that, you pay minimum payments on everything else. And once that debt is paid off, which hopefully comes in real quick, you now add the total amount that you were paying for that debt to the minimum payment of what is now the smallest balance debt. And you just keep snowballing. So the amount that you're paying doesn't change. The minimum payments don't change, but you're trying to find extra shifts and you're trying to find extra dollars and couch cushion, coins, anything. And we're throwing it at that smallest balance debt. It actually spirals so much faster than you think. My wife and I were able to pay off over $71,000 in 2 years. And I've run the numbers a dozen times. It does not make sense that we paid off that, because in that 2 years we had a job change, and the job change unfortunately did not include a bigger salary. It was a much lower salary, so it does not make sense we were able to pay it off. But you start thinking differently, and you start approaching things differently, and you start saying yes to future you more than yes to today you. And the more you do that, the easier it is to say, oh, no, thank you. We will not be joining you at that concert. No, thank you. We will not be joining you at that Vegas trip. No, thank you. We do not need to upgrade our, Wi-Fi and add on all the bells and whistles on our cable bill. Like, nope, we're good with what we have, because future me has big plans. Future me is really excited, and future me needs that money. Future me needs to be debt free. And that's what I'm working toward. That's my goal.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about you just talking about the planning piece, when I was a trainer, I would have people to come in and they go, well, I'm just going to, without a plan, to show up at the gym after New Year's and go, I'll just try this machine. Then I'll skip over to that machine. And then I'll skip to that machine. Well, I got to work on abs because I got to get 6-pack abs. And then they go to the donut place right after because they don't equate the diet at the same time as the other part. And just by doing the snowball thing, you have a plan that you are committed to, and you can see results. Because I think that's why people quit so often, is because they don't see any results. And if they start with that high interest, $10,000, thing, and they paying I'll pay an extra $15 a month. All they see is that balance going up, and they go, this doesn't work. So I'm just going to go ahead and quit and go back to guessing and show up at the beginning of the month, like you said, without something written down. I think of, like, when I think of people and some of the things, well, I don't have any additional money in my budget to be able to tackle this. And then you ask them things like, I can remember when cable was easy, right? You had one bill, it was a cable bill, and you had to watch all your shows, right? But now you have no cable bill, but you got 9 streaming services, right? You just start adding them all up and you go, wait a minute, do you really need to watch Hulu and Netflix and Paramount Plus and Peacock? And how many shows did you watch this week on Peacock? I watched one show this week, and you watched it for 4 weeks, right? And so 4 weeks, you spent $30 or whatever it is so that you could watch one show 4 times. Right. And you have all this debt. So, we always love to talk about Starbucks. So, do you really need that fancy coffee? But if you're able to when you look at somebody's budget when they first throw it, should they be using AI or ChatGPT or one of those things to help them? I've told a couple of people lately, go tell Chat, since you feel like the emotion of the shame that comes with your spending habits, before you come to me, go to ChatGPT and tell them all the things you're spending money on, and then have ChatGPT tell you what you can start saving on. Because ChatGPT there's no emotion there. It's just straight out looking at numbers and saying, this is what you can do. Now we can come to me and we can work on, or to you, and work on that emotional spending side of it. I mean, is Absolutely. That what you find with budget? But most people just don't have a budget. That's
But,
that.
I think it's spot on. Most people don't have a budget, or when they do create that budget, they get frustrated, and so they blow their budget pretty regularly. And so, yeah, I think having the ability to write it all down and know I'm going to commit to this because I'm choosing it. This is what I want, and it's going to be a little bit hard on the front side instead of a lot hard on the back side. I've never heard anybody who's like, "Man, I've been paying minimum payments on my debt for the last 10 years. I'm so glad I didn't get rid of this. I love having it." Like nobody says that.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's like, why am I still dragging this massive ball and chain behind me? I wish I would have started sooner to get rid of all these debts that are still just weighing me down. Fiscally and even physiologically, knowing that you have a bunch of debt and a bunch of people that you owe money, it weighs on you. It's harder to get out of bed in the morning. It's harder to fall asleep at night. And when that phone rings and it's an unlisted number, you're much more likely to be like, "Oh man, who did I forget to pay?" So having the plan that you came up with towards the goals that are really important to you, getting those psychological wins by paying off the small debts first, shows you that it does in fact work. It absolutely works if you take that approach.
Thank you for being so real because, you know, most people, well, I listen to this guy. He told me he have all this money. He never had no debt collectors call him and worried about phone calls. And, you know, so many people you see, oh, God, no, I'm not answering that one. Or I'm not answering that
Right.
one. I'm not answering that one. It would
Yep.
have been there. I can remember when I was a teacher and we got paid once a month back in the day when we could write checks. And I would go to like Costco, or I think it was called Price Club at the time before it changed into Costco. And it would be like the 25th of the month, and I got to feed my kids. And I would poke holes in the numbers of the check so it wouldn't go through direct deposit at first. I knew that they'd have to read it and decipher it and would give me that 4 days till I got paid in order to buy the food and stuff. And so, and you know, that's the last thing I wanted in remembering those things. But then I think about it now, I'm like, what did I buy that didn't give me enough money at the end of the month that I was struggling to pay for food? And now when I look back at it, I see some of the spending habits and some of the things we did that we didn't need at the time, or that I could have been doing something else with or paying off debt with. But now I'm in an emergency, right? We got to buy food, you know, and we don't have it because we spent money here. So we talked about emergency fund, budget, starting to eliminate debt. What comes after that?
So a lot of what's happening is we are learning, and we're learning more than one thing at a time. So some of the
Okay.
stuff we do when it comes to money, we're set it and forget it. Eventually, when we're putting away for retirement, just pick the amount that you're putting away and put it away consistently every month. Set it and forget it. But one of the things that we're doing at this stage is we're also creating what's called a sinking fund. It's a commercial real estate term, and it's designed to help builders or large owners of buildings, owners of large buildings, put aside a little bit of money every month for big, expensive purchases that they're going to have to make. At small scale, for most of us who are here, tires on my car, they're $1,200, right? And the tires at the store, they told me these tires are rated for 40,000 miles. And what that means is if something goes wrong and you can't use the tire at 30,000 miles, we will prorate you because you didn't get the extra 10,000 miles of usage. So they're rated for 40,000 miles. Well, if you bought, it's January 1st, 2025. If you bought tires today and you drive 10,000 miles a year, and the tires are rated for 40,000 miles, you've got 4 years until you need to buy tires. So what that means is you've got 4 years to save up $1,200.
Yeah.
Most folks don't think that way, and instead they say, "Oh, well, I just paid for tires, so I'm good for a while. I don't need to think about tires for a while." And then they don't think about tires at all until 4 years from now when they need new tires. We're going to come up with $1,200. Look at this emergency. Nah, man, fam, this was not an emergency. You literally had all the data to know exactly when this was going to happen. You falling down outside on the icy road and cracking a tooth and needing to go to the emergency dentist. You didn't know that was going to happen. You couldn't have planned that was going to happen. But 10,000 miles you drive every year, you have 40,000-mile tires, you know exactly when you need new tires. If you put a small amount of money away every month, then when you need the new tires, you have tire money. That money is not going to Vegas money. The money is not, let's get new kitchen countertop money. That's tire money. That's not an emergency because we can plan on this. When the plumber comes over and tells you, hey, the hot water heater you got here, I fixed it today, but I wouldn't try and go more than 12 months without replacing this. And he says, a new hot water heater, $600. Well, now you know the clock is ticking. You had better be putting $50 a month away into your sinking fund every month this year. Or at the end of this year, when you need to pay $600 for the next hot water heater, you won't have it. And now what totally planned for event becomes an emergency because you didn't replace it in time and it broke and flooded your basement. Totally preventable. But because we didn't take those prevention steps, what wasn't an emergency now absolutely is an emergency. And everything in your life has to stop to fix it because we didn't put money away in the sinking fund for the stuff you're going to have expenses around. You just don't know always exactly what date, but you know that it's coming.
Yeah. That's so important because that's one thing I don't really hear about a lot is a sinking fund.
Yeah.
One of the things that people tell me all the time before we go to the next one is I can't wait to get my tax return. Now,
Yes.
I haven't had a W-2 in a long time, so I don't know what a tax return is. But for those who do, it's like they're already deciding what they're going to spend. I want to give more money to the government right now so that when I get my tax return, I can spend it. But when I look at these 4 categories, talk to me about the tax return and what we should be thinking in our mind about taxes and tax returns.
So first and foremost, just so everybody is on the same page, if you're getting a tax return that makes you really excited for the size of it, it's because you loaned your money to the government at 0% interest. You gave our leaders and administration your money for free and said, hey, why don't you guys hold on to this for me for the next year and hit me back when you can, I don't know, around April next year. That'd be great. There's no reason to do that. Some people look at it as like, that's how I'm saving. No, the better way to save is to create that budget, live on it. If you decrease the amount that the government is taking from you each month so that you don't get a refund or that the refund you get is much smaller, that means every month you have more money that you can decide what to do with. If you have no emergency fund, if you have a bunch of debt, if you have no sinking fund, you are the perfect candidate to stop getting a massive tax refund and instead every month get more money that you can throw at your smallest balance debt, that you can start including in your budget in your sinking fund, that you can put on a line item on your account of, hey, I have these expenses that I'm working toward, tires, vet bills. I don't know when my dog is going to eat something that they shouldn't, but I know we're going to wind up going to the vet for it. So into my sinking fund, I'm putting a certain amount every month so that it's covered when the expense shows up. If you do that, you take more control of your money and you don't spend, gosh, I can only imagine how hard it is to spend a year waiting for the government to give you back your money. Man, that'll change everything when the government returns the money that I loaned to them for free 17 months from now. Gosh, that'll be so nice. No. Let's not do that. You're in control of your money. You tell it where to go. Hold on to it.
Yeah, because if you're getting a $3,600 tax return consistently, let's say, that's kind of the average people get. That's $300 a month
Every
that
month.
could be going towards these things.
Correct.
And
Yes.
and then taking it away and saying, you say, well, I don't have any money. Well, you do have money. That's just money you haven't been thinking about. There's so many different ways. Maybe we can do another show to just talk about how do you find money that you think you don't have. That might be a fun show to do
Yes.
as we go through. After the sinking fund, what are we looking at now?
All right. So the sinking fund is always happening. You're always doing the thing. There's no time in your life where you shouldn't have a sinking fund. I don't care how many zeros are in a bank account, because you still have expenses, and there isn't any sense to just wait for big expenses to come when you could plan for those expenses. And the same is the case for the emergency fund. Again, it doesn't matter how wealthy you wind up getting, you're going to have an emergency fund, and that emergency fund is for whatever constitutes an emergency for you at that stage of your life. So those things are going to continue happening. Ideally, after we've got our debt paid off, now we can start to have a lot more fun, and a lot more of that fun is throughout this process you've been laser focused on getting all your debt paid off. And one of the ways you're doing that is writing a budget and planning, what am I going to do next month with every dollar that I'm going to earn and every dollar that I need to spend. But one of the things you should also be doing throughout this whole process is getting a crystal clear vision for the future that you are doing. Why are you doing all of this? The future you are trying to create, why do you need to be debt free in that future? Why are you trying to do things differently in that future? Whatever the reasons are, you should have a crystal clear picture of that why. You need that clarity. And now that you're debt free, now you look at your budget and you say, well, I was spending 4, 5, 7, 8, 900, 12, 1,500, $2,500 a month just on my debt payments. And now that I don't have to do that anymore, what am I going to put that money to? Because we already know if you do not have a job for your dollars, then they come pre-installed from the mint with the job to leave you and to leave no trace that they were ever with you. Like that
Yeah.
that is the dollar's job, is to leave you. Money circulates. Its job is to hit your hands for a second and then leave. If you don't give it a different job, that's what it's going to do. And so now that you're debt free, now that you have money, what are we working towards? Well, I'm working towards a retirement that I can be really proud of. I want to leave a legacy for my family. I want to travel the world. I want to give generously to a bunch of charities. There's so many things I want to work toward. Great. Well, you have $2,500 a month that you were paying for student loan, car payment, other car payment, boat payment, all 14 credit cards, all of these medical bills that you had and just kept putting on paying. You were paying $2,500 a month, and now you are debt free. Let us into the retirement account the amount of money that will support you thriving, not just surviving, but thriving in retirement. For most folks, the amount that they should be looking at, especially if they're W-2, is 15% of your pay should be going into a retirement account that's growing appropriately. And we say growing appropriately because some people are like, oh, well, I just buy 15% every month. I take 15% of my paycheck and I put all of it on red in the roulette wheel. That is not appropriate growth. I put all of it on Bitcoin. I put all of it on this one company stock. That is not appropriate growth. You need to be diversified in the accounts that you have. This is part of our learning that we're doing. And you're putting 15% of your pay into accounts that you will have better access to, tax-deferred accounts, tax-free accounts like the Roth IRA. And that's where the money should be going. Now, that's going to start growing. And that's one of the things we set it and we forget it. We're putting that 15% away. And then what we start doing is looking, all right, well, if I have a house, how do I pay this thing off early? And if I don't have a house, but I really like one, how much do I need to save up so I can start getting one, so I can get myself a little piece of land? And that's where, again, having a crystal clear vision of why are you doing all of this work? You went to the gym in January. Why? What is it that you wanted to be different? Because if you don't have a crystal clear picture of that, when it gets hard and your muscles are sore and you have to walk past the same donut shop 14 times today and not go in there, it's too hard if you don't have a crystal clear vision of why you are doing it.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Because what I'm saying is that there's a pattern of steps that you go through. And the first step isn't investing in crypto or investing in Bitcoin or, even, this is the season where giving is big, right? So every charity in the world is calling you, asking you, and they're giving you a reason. And I'm not saying those are bad reasons, and I'm not saying don't give to them. But if your own financial house is struggling,
correct,
then what kind of talk to us a little bit about, how do we manage that? Because we want to give and we want the people to know that we're doing that kind of stuff.
So there's kind of two. Great question. Thanks for asking it. I believe we are put on this earth not to just be blessed, but to be a blessing to other people, right? And so it's important that we find ways that we can give. So for some, I love you, and our creator put you here. They love you, but you are too poor to be giving your money away when your house is not in order. You need to get your house in order and then figure out how you can be giving the dollars away. Because I do believe God blessed you with whatever skill you got to earn the money that you got. He wanted you to have those dollars. He absolutely wants you to be able to tithe on those. He wants you to be able to give an offering on those. But I do not believe he's going to be mad at you if you are $80,000 in debt, no emergency fund, no sinking fund, and paycheck to paycheck living, to say I'm gonna really focus on getting this situation righted before I start doling out tens of thousands of dollars to some other folks to help them out. That's the reason that they tell you on the plane, put your oxygen mask on first before you start helping some little people with their oxygen mask. Because if you pass out because the pressure in the airplane changed and you don't have a mask on, you can't help anybody. In the same way, if you don't have your own house in order, you aren't going to be around to help anybody else out, because you'll be on the side of the street with a sign. It's like, man, can somebody help me out? So I think it's really important to have as a part of your budget three things. One is I want you to have a line item for your giving that's appropriate for the financial state that you are in. And maybe it's $5 a month. Maybe it's one. Maybe it's $50. Maybe it's $100. But you should have a line item on your budget. This is how much I can give away, because we have a giving heart and we want to help other people. But you look at it and be like, hey, this is the $5. I found somebody on the side of the road. I handed it to him. And the next person, I'll be like, brother, I ain't got nothing left to give. And it looks like I have some money, but this money actually belongs to my sinking fund. This money actually belongs to my credit card company because I borrowed it from them. I got to give it back. This money actually belongs to my emergency fund. So it looks like I'm holding it, but I'm actually just delivering it where it needs to go. So this isn't money that I can give to you because it belongs to something else. The other item that we want to have, so we're talking about, I do think it's important that we have a giving item. We should have a place for giving. I also think it's really important that you have, I call it the blow category, not because we're using this money to buy blow, but because this is money that you're totally okay to blow. Totally okay to go to the store, get a candy bar. Totally okay. You played some Candy Crush and you want to download a couple more whatevers are in the game. Great. Again, maybe it's $1 a month, maybe it's 5 or 20. But if you're telling me I really want to be debt free, and the category that you have for your fund money is $500 a month, I think we all know that's too much. So you need to dial that down. That's one of the second categories that should be on your budget. The third category, and I'm going to upset a lot of folks, but I'm here to speak the truth, so I'm speaking it. The third category, we lovingly refer to this as, many of the members of my family are stupid, is the line item on the budget. And because many of the family members that you have, they are not great with money, and they will absolutely take advantage of the fact that you seem to be trying to get your life in order, and they will take the money that belongs in your emergency fund if you let them. And they will take the money that belongs to your sinking fund if you let them. And they will take the money that belongs to your retirement account if you let them. If you have a line item that says, I can spend $100 this month on my family members who come up to me being like, hey, I can't figure out what's going on in my life. Can you spare, brother, can you spare some change? Yeah, this is how much I can spare. I don't have any more because I'm looking, this is all that's available. All of those other dollars are not my dollars. That's the sinking funds dollars and the emergency fund dollars and the retirement accounts dollars. That's all of those dollars are not mine to give you, but I do have this much. And if you'd like it, I'm happy to give it to you. And if you called me after I gave all of the money in my family member line item budget to our sister, if I gave it to her yesterday, you should have called me earlier in the month, brother. I ain't got nothing for you. I'm sorry. Let's try again next month. But if you have those three things, it will help to buffer some of the things that could otherwise eat at your success.
Thank you so much for that. Michael, I saw that you came on. Did you have a question that you want to ask Jonathan?
No, I just came on and I didn't even know what you guys were talking about. I just came on.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll let you put you in the background. Just raise your hand if you want one. And then
okay.
Sure. We've probably got a few more minutes left of our conversation, but thank you for coming on and I appreciate it. Wow, that's so good when we talk about the giving part of it, because, and even though sometimes we feel guilty or we feel shame because
Right.
now, let's say we go to church now, and then church says, well, you have to tithe. And so
Yeah.
you got to take 10% of the money that you don't have to even hardly live on right now because of the things that you did, but whatever you created. And do you have a formula for helping people? Because like you said, it's that $5, whatever it is, and but to not feel that shame of, I can't do 10% right now.
Yeah. Again, I believe firmly that if we're talking specifically, if we're talking to the church folk, there is not a moment referenced anywhere in the Bible where debt is referred to in a positive way. It's never referred to in a positive way. It's never referred to in a neutral way. It is always referred to negatively. And there's a number of verses in there. The borrower is slave to the lender. Solomon was the wisest man, one of the richest men who ever lived. He wrote a number of books, but the book of Proverbs includes a bunch of wisdom around getting out of debt. If you are in debt, escape like an animal caught in a trap. Do not sleep. Do not rest. Fight until you are debt free. And so the idea of remembering God doesn't want us to be in bondage. He doesn't want us to feel trapped. And debt makes you feel trapped. So being able to say, I'm going to do something, I want to give more, and I'm going to, because I'm doing hard work now so I can do more later. And again, that's a conversation between you and your partner and God. Hey, should we not tithe? Should we not do any offerings until we get debt free? We continue to do it because we do believe, God honored the sacrifices that we made in continuing to do that. But I'm not going to be mad at anybody who's like, I push pause on tithing, I push pause on giving the extra into the offering plate until I get my house in order. Because you got to get your house in order. Everything else depends on.
So after retirement, I don't, maybe we say this for another show, but I'd love to talk about, whatever's next, whether it's investing. Sometime I think we should talk about entitlements. I was we were doing a living trust, and it was just so amazing. We're talking about putting money and making sure there's a legacy. But all she kept coming back to is, what about Medicaid? What about Medicaid? And I'm literally thinking, I'm like, you got $500,000 in the bank. You're not going to get Medicaid.
Right.
But what do I got to do in order to get Medicaid? You don't need Medicaid. But we just have this, like, these entitlements. We've worked for them, or we deserve them, or they're part of. I spent my whole life working, paying into Social Security, so I should get all my money back out. But they're not giving me enough, and all the things that somehow we believe, if we've done a good job and we've done those things, that somehow we're entitled to all these things, and it just becomes crazy. So I'd love to talk about that at some point. Is there one thing you would like to finish up with or talk about? I mean, I'll keep going, but I just want to make sure I'm respecting your time, and I know we can have another show. And guys, I'm going to get them back. I promise. So.
I know. I appreciate the question. Yeah, I think you could do a whole show on entitlement. You could do a couple shows just on investing. I think one of the things that I would encourage everybody who's listening, anybody who's watching, is step into the role of someone who wants to learn as much as you can on the things that are most important to you. If you are saying, I really want my financial situation to be different, but then you fall into the camp of being the average American is watching 30 hours of television a week. 30 hours a week.
A week.
And now I'm not mad at you. This is the average. And I'm not even saying you're binge watching 30 hours, in 2 days, but an hour here, an hour there, 30 minutes over there, watching 20 minutes on your phone. You're watching 2-hour movie back-to-back marathons on a late Friday night. If what you are saying is you really wanted to be debt free and you also are watching 30 hours of television a week, then what you're saying is, I want to be debt free as long as I don't have to sacrifice anything to get there. And you need to be real honest when you look in the mirror or when you look at your phone screen time and it tells you how much time you spent playing Candy Crush, Solitaire, Facebook, TikTok, whatever your pleasure happens to be. Social media, also another place where, on average, Americans spending about 90 minutes a day. You could burn through a number of financial literacy books, audiobooks, ebooks in 90 minutes a day. If this were really important, if this was really important to you, if you really wanted to get a better understanding, and all you did was swap half of your TV time, do you know how much you can learn spending 15 hours a week on a new topic, or a topic that is new to you? 60 hours a month, and that's 720 hours this year that you could be spending 15 hours a week. All of a sudden, you are the financial guru. But again, what many people are saying is, I really want a phenomenal retirement, and I really want to have an emergency fund, and I really want to be debt free, as long as I don't have to do anything different. As long as I don't have to do anything hard. So I would encourage you to start building the vision of what it is you're wanting, so that you can use that as motivation for why you're choosing hard now, why you're sacrificing, why I'm deleting Amazon off my phone. I'm removing all those apps, Paramount, Netflix. I'm moving all those off of my phone. I shouldn't be using those. If I find myself with a few minutes of time, these are the books that I'm going to read. These are the podcasts I'm going to listen to, so I can learn from people who do know what they're talking about. These are the online Khan Academy videos that I'm going to watch that will help me better understand how I navigate money and my own budget. Wherever you're going to get the information, be it a trusted source, you could be replacing the time that you're currently spending doing other things with these new things that will help you towards this important goal. But you're not going to want to do that if you don't have a really crystal clear vision of why. Why am I sacrificing today?
Yeah, I love the way that you say that, because there is so much time to learn. Sometimes I'll be talking to somebody and they'll tell me, well, I have all this debt, right? I'm like, well, what kind of money, what does your budget look like? Do you know how much debt you even have? And they're like, not really. And they're like, but Patrick Mahomes did this, 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 and this. And so you're watching a multimillionaire play a game, and that has nothing to do with your life, and you're not in the game of your own life. And so yes. I think that's a good segue to just kind of, pause the show for now. We will be back. We will, like I said, I'm going to get him back. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about insurances. We're going to talk about some amazing things that are needed in your household. But what I would encourage you to do today is, hey, look at that, emergency fund. If you don't have one, for 30th, I don't know when you're watching this, whatever time of the month it is, before the next month starts, have something written down. And that's all you do. You don't even take action on anything else, but you got a budget written down, and let's see how you do next month to kind of get started. Now, Jonathan, I did promise you before you get off, I want to know about the new business that you started and how you started it. So maybe just give us a preview, and then we can look you up and all that kind of stuff, because I don't want the folks not to be able to hear that you got some amazing stuff going.
Well, I appreciate that. The business is called The Senior Shop, and it's a mobile pop-up gift shop. We take it to senior communities all over the Front Range. We landed in this after my wife's father passed away, and he was the primary caregiver for my wife's mom. Her name's Diane, and when we tried to take care of her for about a month. We're like, nope, we do not have the skill for this. We are unequipped to help in all the ways that mom needs help. So we found an amazing community that really supports her, and even with that really amazing support, one of the things that we quickly noticed was there's a disconnect between what's easily available for the residents of the community and what, like, they want to go shopping or they need an item. Going shopping is not that easy when you're on oxygen or have a walker or a wheelchair. Even if you've got a ride to the mall, it can be really challenging to sign up to go to the mall for 4 hours, because I don't actually know how I'm going to be feeling in 90 minutes. I might want to come back and lie down, but I got to wait for the bus for another 2.5 hours. I just won't go. And so in recognizing for Mom and for many of the other residents at her community, we were kind of grabbing stuff that we thought that, for birthday presents and holiday gifts that they would be happy to have. Said, what if there's a way we could just do this all the time? And so we take our pop-up gift shop into the community. We set up our tables and bring all brand new items to put on display. We sell them whatever it is that they're interested in, ask names, hear stories, connect with them in ways that help them feel seen. 100% of the communities that we have gone into, we're so proud to be able to say, have invited us to please come back. We had a great time. We're so glad you came. And so just launching that business at this stage has been what Stacy and I have been working on for the last few months. And I'm also glad to say every single available date for 2025 has been taken. So now we're booking into 2026. And so if there are folks who are out there, especially, hey, you're saying, I have a dream and I really want to bring it to fruition, but I can't because I have all this debt. You can do more than one thing at a time. You're breathing and your heart's beating and you're chewing gum and you're walking all the same. You can do a couple of hard things at the same time. So they don't have to be huge steps every day. You're not going to pay off 3 of your credit cards tomorrow, right? And you're not going to launch the business and have $10,000 in sales by next Wednesday. But if you're taking steps moving forward, then you keep moving forward. You will get closer and closer and closer towards these goals, and you will start to pick up speed. And all of a sudden, these are not baby steps. These are huge leaps, and you are sprinting, and you are almost there, and then you are there, and life has changed. So.
Well, Michael, thank you. Or John, I say Michael. Michael's underneath right here. I'll put him up so he wants to say something. But thank you so much for being on tonight, for taking time out of your busy schedule, your busy day, because I know the knowledge that you gave us today and the things that you talked about can make a difference in people's lives in a big, huge, incredible way. So with that said, I want everybody to know, hey, we're going to be here every Thursday night. We're going to have many more guests. Jonathan is going to be back more in depth about some things. We're going to talk about where to find money that you don't even know where to find money. That's one of the things that we talked about. And so have a wonderful, amazing rest of your evening, day, or day, whatever you're talking about. Don't forget you are God's greatest gift, and he loves you if you allow him to. And Michael, did you want to say one thing before we leave?
Well, I mean, Jonathan's got a lot of energy.
Oh my gosh, he does.
I mean, that's what really stood out for me, all of that energy. But, I'm glad, I'm glad I don't have those problems. I don't know what I did to get it right, but I've been debt free for probably about 15 or 20 years. I did incur some debt last year this is the first time I bought a car that I didn't pay for it all at once. So I don't know, I owe $15,000 on it, but I don't have any other debt other than a little bit on my mortgage, so I have about 50,000 on my mortgage. And I'm still bringing in a decent yearly income. So those two things will be taken care of. And, I got to tell you, I'm going to get rid of those Netflix and things like that because I don't really watch them. I have them just in case. But literally, to watch a movie a month on Netflix just isn't worth
$20.
There's other things I could spend the money on. And listen, and I'm going to spend all the money. When I'm done, I'm going to be broke. I'm not leaving anything for anybody. There is no legacy. There's just me living in the here and now and enjoying things, while I'm here.
Yeah.
So, listen, if I had a bunch of kids or that kind of thing, things would be different, but I don't. And, I have a not-for-profit, so I give to people. And but I give to myself first. And you're so right. I use that airplane, oxygen mask all the time. And, you can't model for people if you're not taking care of yourself. And so many people want to model for others and help other people. A guy called me the other day and said he was helping somebody I said, I would appreciate if you stopped calling me and telling me these people you're helping, because I know you're not doing the same thing for yourself. And I'm glad you're getting help, but those same people would not do it for you. and he's supposed to be writing a book, and he's put the book off because I said, you put your book off, but you have time to drive here, and you have time to do this, and you have time to do that. Why do you do it? Well, it's all ego. It's all, I need to feel needed by others. And I said, you've got to figure out how to get it from the inside, because if you're getting it from the outside, it's never ending.
Yeah.
It's going to be constant. You're going to be doing it till you get on your deathbed, and you're going to be resentful that you wasted all that time. But anyway, I can go on for days on that, but.
Yeah, and I'm going to have you on, Michael. We're going to talk about your story and that million miles. He was like an ultra marathon guy that walked through a desert. What desert was that? Somewhere in Africa that you was walking.
Well, I did the Sahara Desert. It was 155 miles. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're gonna have you on. We're gonna talk about it in your life, and thank you for being on today, Jonathan. Yeah. Again, thank you. You guys have an amazing, awesome, just incredible night tonight, and we will talk to you guys all on the next.